Today we wanted to talk about angels and demons, or just anything really, just that it really encompasses angels and demons, period.
I would like to have a grasp of an understanding of them or how to perceive. And I will honestly say, the more I learn, the more that I feel like I really truly didn't understand.
And I was unaware. I mean, I knew that like angels are perceived in like art throughout history as being really beautiful and just like white and just angelic and just very, like sort of like a olive branch in a human. But what I was unaware of up until, I don't know, maybe the past like 2 years was that like, oh no, they're very scary.
I like working with both of them. And they, again, the way that our perception of how we see angels and demons, I mean, there could be like an angel with like 8 eyes on their face, I mean, it's very like alien-like to me. And that could be the same going for the demons. I had one of the, Furcus being one of them, he kind of, if he was in human form, he'd remind me of like a Harley Davidson like biker with like a pot belly. And the mix of like when the old school Power Rangers, it was like the big like blue puffy guy, that was like the side henchman.
What was that like creature that was like half the body of a human but the head of like a bull? Minotaur?
Manotaur? Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Oh goodness. Also, that was depicted in Hercules too, but I can't even remember the name. But I know what you're talking about. They had like the little horns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody's gonna call us out and just be like, "It's this, you guys," and they're like, "Ugh." It's how you depict it. For most of, when I think of like faun, I still think of, even though it is Roman, again, it kind of goes into the mythology of the creatures, of going back into the Fae, and how things, they just kind of like go into this kind of swirl of what we understand, and how it's like phasing out the cultures when everyone was that we were going to be tried to conform into one, and kind of not going in the old way. And now that we are learning different things and awakening to like, hey, Catholicism was trying to take over, the Romans tried to come and establish, and then you have other different belief systems. And so when things are rewritten, again, fallen angels, people forget that they were once angel before, and then now they go into demons, and you think every demon is like, with the pointy little,
They're not as such. I mean, even like,
yeah.
Even in like the Salem witch trials, I mean, what was his name? Forget who wrote The Crucible, but even in that book, like they blamed it on the slave Tituba, right? Because it was, African witchcraft, and it was deemed as bad because it wasn't Puritan, and in reality, I mean, there's a lot of misinformation surrounding the indigenous practices. I mean, I was even like, I remember I went to this Christian private school for a majority of my life, and I remember hearing that they went on a mission trip to Haiti when the earthquake happened because they needed to save them because of their witchcraft, which let's not call it that, but just call it indigenous religion. And then I think about it, and I think how like imperialistic it is to really come to a conclusion when in all reality we just don't have all the facts to I mean, there's so many that one can research. I mean, for crying out loud, even in like the King James, the King James that pretty much translated the New and Old Testament, wrote a book on demonology before he translated those texts. So what's to say that like the information that was once fed to you isn't historically accurate or even depicted as being scary or something that you shouldn't be, you know, meddling with? Because when I think about that, I think of like, okay, well, if we've been told that, you know, demons are bad and angels are good, and they're like angels depicted a certain way, then perhaps we should all brush up on our like sort of informational, you know, binders of the information we have in our head about what they are, because in the end, like what may come to you as a surprise may even help you. Because I like to think of like, okay, so this person translated all these Bibles and there are so many different sort of translations out there. What's to say? And a lot of people not even know that he wrote a book on demonology to begin with. So I think about it as like, okay, well, you know, again, going back to the, you know, black magic and white magic, and it, for me, being one and the same, it's all about intention. Who's to say that they haven't been there all along?
Yeah.
Who has to say that like you've been working with them and you don't even know, but you perceive them as like, oh, that's bad, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, which is why it's so important. Again, we still have a lot to learn, and like I still have so much to learn with angels and demons. And I mean, there's even one where it's like that if somebody's just really just giving you a hard time and being a big bully, I mean, one of them can just make your skin crawl with like the feeling like you have parasites or something, you know.
Okay. I mean, gross, but like, hey, you know what? If you wanted to send that demon towards that person to leave you alone, I support you.
Yeah. They do like to work. You don't have to have like the X and rhyme and reason as to why. But again, like as human beings, it's like we should try to like think things through before we do them. I mean, one even just does like the Furcus is the one where it's like the extreme feeling of guilt to another person if they have done something, and they can definitely do that. So it just kind of affects with like the manipulations of the minds and the emotion kind of thing. So and so that's why I like working with them, because there's more depth to them than just they just go out and they terrorize. You know what I mean? There's a lot more depth, just like the angels, that we don't understand, and the more that we dive in. And it's funny you were bringing up the point of, you know, the term of white versus black magic. And I was listening to a module that I registered for this membership, and they were talking about grimoires in the culture, and they had put necromancy as you're working with the dead, right? And so you have people who don't really understand. We're all trying to commune with spirits, but the term from necromancy, I would say look it up, because I'm still trying to research that myself. But they deem that as the black arts, but really more so it came from people of color, is what they associated it to make it look like it had a bad rap based on history, calling it something else. So grimoires, when we're looking at it, everybody's like, oh, no. If it's not like the Holy Bible, you know, we have nothing to do with it. You have to understand these grimoires existed back in these early centuries to basically what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get closer to a higher consciousness, to higher entities and beings that we don't understand for our own spirituality, which is why we have these sigils and these talisman and these old texts, because people were trying to see, just like when we do a spell and document of what worked for us for something that was so trying in our lives, to see how that worked in our favor and how we could grow better in our spiritual faith on certain things. So I believe it all, and you know, and I just have to be open to the idea. But things have, in so many centuries up to now, they've gotten so manipulated, and if you're not daring to ask the questions or the answers, you're just looking at one viewpoint in life of being like, that's just wrong and bad. And it's like, but there's some bad things about yours too. They can totally do harm if they want to, and if you ask, and they will come if you call. That's the one thing we always forget, is like, they will step in if we call them and say, can you please step in and help me with this? If you don't say anything and you're going to sit there and just be like, who are you going to call on? They're not going to come if you don't ask for their help.
It's sort of like when in The Little Mermaid, like she says, I don't understand why a world with such wonderful things can be bad. Mm-hmm. And when she was called up to, like, you know, she went into the land, she also learned something herself, which was, don't be such a pushover. But she asked for help from a sea witch, which in reality, she wasn't even that bad to begin with. She was like, you want to learn a lesson? Because you're going to learn one and they're going to learn one too. Like, you want a wish fulfilled, which is to be in a sort of perpetual state of happiness, but you're not going to get that. So it always comes down to, for me at least, like, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get what you're asking for. Did you think things through? Right. Did you do inner healing before you decided to do things in a rage? Because it can backfire.
Definitely so. And I think that's what, whether if it is angel, demon, or higher entity, they do understand, like, as us as being humans, we know how to make a muck of things, you know, because we have all these emotions.
Isn't that what the crab said? Like, oh, those humans up there are so, like, they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's better where it's wetter in the ocean down by the sea.
Yes. On the seafloor. But I like working with both. I always feel like I learned something, whether if it's through angel work or demon work. There's always like a lesson in everything, as to what they do and what they are there for. I was looking through the list of names of what I was working with. Forcalor was another one that I worked with. And
Folklore?
Forcalor, Forcalor. And Forcalor, he can weather the power of malicious magic that is directed at you. Okay. See, this is to help you. All right. To cause a business or venture to fail. All right. So we have things that are helpful for your defense, and then also to backfire on others. To fill a named individual with crippling self-doubt. All right. So maneuvering in the mind. And then to cause one who is unwell to remain unwell. So, I mean, they all have a purpose. There's also evocation keys where you, in your mind, where they have these associations, like the smell of like burnt roses, or, you know, like a wet kind of skin texture if you've been sitting like in the tub for too long, you know, things like that, and just imagining or seeing or feeling. Yeah, like those types. Like
a mildew sort of like smell, like you haven't washed your tub in like a year. I know that smell. Sorry, I'm very into the senses. Like, you said that, I was like, no thanks, please.
But again, it is for you to really tap into that energy of certain things. But yeah, I mean, I recommend just everyone learning more and trying to be open to the idea and understanding of, like, it's what you use it for. But yeah, all those books.
I was gonna say, like, if you notice, even in throughout history, like specifically like Egyptian history, don't you think it's fascinating that, like, you see like the pyramids and you see that the Sphinx, right, which is like sort of like a head of a human, but like body of a cat, and then you also see them like even in their like hieroglyphics of it being like these are the things that they saw. And they decided to put them on the wall. And then I come to think about it and I think, like, what makes me not believe that, like, this is exactly how they look like and they've been in front of our face this whole time? But we like to believe them as, we always like to humanize everything so that we can better understand it. But who's to say that, like, if they were to reveal themselves in the way that they really look, would we just not listen? Would we be living in fear? Or again, like, even historically speaking, culturally, what is it? Lucifer was depicted as being like so beautiful, but like
because he was an
everyone.
angel. Yeah. And then he's fallen. Now he's demonized, right?
Yeah, but like even then, like I think about it and I think, okay, how can something so beautiful be so bad? But then again, like that's how we get sort of duped all the time, because we've humanized them, these beings in reality. You really saw what they are. Like, would you want to work with them? Would you not want to work with them? What be your aversion to it? But it really, I think, depending on the sort of energy that you get, but nonetheless, like everyone and everything in this dimension is a sentient being, and it's really up to the person to decipher whether or not like it's good or bad, because again, like what's bad for you actually is good for me.
Yeah, and not to impose that idea, and not to get like too far off to the topic, but because you brought up Lucifer, then we have Lilith, which Lilith was like being the first wife of Adam, and that that didn't work out very well. But Lilith is associated with demons, and she has like her demons that she has. She's also, because you were bringing up like with Egyptian lore and the way cultures kind of like shift things around, and there might be similarities with certain things. Lilith having like the clawed like feet like in statues, the way that she's been presented as well. I mean, again, because of the way that she was, of being like, and it's very empowering today, which is why there's many like so many that are devoted to her, because of how she's just that representation of that divine feminine of like, you know what, this isn't for me and I'm not going to do what you say. And so as soon as somebody doesn't step into that conforming of what somebody's asking you to do, that's where it's rewritten as to being like, let's go ahead and demonize her because she didn't follow through on what we expected of what she was thinking we were going to do,
I was going to say, like, she reminds me of a feminist that has a complete and utter rejection of tradition, but also so sovereign to reject any idea that like she needed a man, the patriarchy, to continue her best life. And like I mean, again, like you've even stated, like she's looked at someone so scary and like, oh my gosh, she rejects everything. But in reality, like as you said before, like uses demons for her own benefit so she can be so sovereign, so that no one really penetrates through those boundaries. Because she was the one that didn't want, like, listen, I don't want, traditional marriage, or I don't want you to tell me what to do all the time. I'm not going to do it. I'm not like Eve that just.
Yeah. Who said I wanted to lay down and bear children with you? I'm like, no.
And a lot of people think that that's really bad. Like, I think that it's shocking even in today's like popular culture that, I mean, I think that's a lot more acceptable with the youth as opposed to older generations, because older generations were really fixated on like marriage and being, you know, looking at women as a sort of like supportive role of being of submission. But now that we've like sort of tipped the scales of feminism and of what we truly believe as being of use to society.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of people might think that, like, oh, if you're not a woman, then if you're not going to bear children, well, what's the point? Like, you have this choice. It's a divine choice to reject sort of that patriarchal sort of ideology. Mm-hmm. And while I might see it as a really good thing, others might not. But again, it's still based in neutrality. I don't see Black Lilith as like a horrible, like, oh my God. I'm like, good for you, girl. Like, you want to do what you want to do. This is your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you set your own, like, you know, rule books or sort of like intentions for living. And that does not mean that it's going to super impede on my life, because again, like, what works for you may not work for me. But as long as we're happy and we're all thriving together, then that's all that really matters. Because I don't necessarily see myself like above anybody or below anyone. We're all existing together on this plane together. But I mean, we can even condense this down to like what, like preferences on like food. You might like enjoying dairy. I can't do that because it's going to really mess me up, and I won't. But like, if I had tasted the cakes and the custards, yes, it's delicious. Not so good for me though.
Yeah. Again, it's just personal preference and daring to. We keep talking about like this a lot as far as like choosing to take off the rose-colored glasses or lavender glasses, whatever color that you want. But again, there's so much to learn from both aspects or sides or different cultural beliefs and things. And it's kind of like daring to see like the shadow side of things, but knowing that they can be used for some sense of good. But again, depending on how you look at it. And so that's the reason why we question so much. We're daring to kind of like see like through the veil, you know, like take a little peek, you know, and then eventually we just kind of go through the curtain and then really kind of seeing things for what they are. And it's okay not to just see everything in all like everything's so great, you know, kind of thing. And because it is kind of like the world that we live in, where we have to really see things for both sides for the way they are, and really working with like that, not like, I guess it's kind of like working with that shadowy edge, watery edge, you know, and knowing how to kind of see the light in things. So yeah,
because there's a reason why witches were black, because it absorbs all the energy.
Yeah,
it's not like, and also have we been taught societal wise that black is so bad or not beautiful as it is to white. And to be honest, like it is why I like to see things from a very neutral place, because if I don't, then I can't really fully experience the whole vibrant spectrum. But nonetheless, I like to believe and I like to know that no matter what, like you said, everything does serve a purpose. Everything is a mix of everything. And whether like I am perceived as like a good witch or a bad witch, I'm just like, at the end of the day, it's just witch, girl.
Yeah. I like being right in the middle, because there's a lot to learn from both sides. And there was the other piece, the other book that I was telling you about earlier before we started. So another like good literature, I have a physical copy here, is The Magical Power of the Saints. And this one's written by Reverend Ray T. Malborough. And I loved how he had mentioned in here that witches who do practice, they work with angels because of the protection and how mighty and powerful that they are. And so he went on to the Angels of the Hours and Days Association. He actually gave a whole list of pagan deities on the side that you can work with if you're not comfortable working with those angels also. So again, it's like working like with just who it is and you know, and what you are comfortable with, but it's again how you apply it into your practice and what you are comfortable. We were talking about wait, did he have, yeah, he had Hermes. Hermes is associated with Raphael, Mercury, Woden, and Ogma. And then we have, what else? Gabriel. Gabriel is Artemis, Diana, Hathor, Hecate, and Selene.
That's very interesting. Who do you like to work with?
So I like to work with, out of this, Michael, because Michael is associated with Bridget or Brigid or Bridge. She's still Celtic and she is associated with fire. Yeah. So that I mean he is a nice one, and Raphael is also the other. But you and I've talked about the Hermes, but again, I hardly ever work with like Raphael, but I think more so with like Michael being like here like in the weeks for the days, and he is the most popular. But it does make sense to me, like when I had like that calling, like first celebrating a pagan holiday, it was with Bridget. And so when I start seeing more so now with like the correspondences of things, I'm like, that's so cool. Like I found some sort of resonance here, and it's still like lining up with the archangels. And I did find the Morrigan, Samael, which I haven't worked with Samael. So that one is Aries, Mars, Teal, I guess as far as like Tiwaz, and then you have the Morrigu. Yeah. Yep. Very much so.
That's really cool.
Anael is Epona, Aphrodite, Eros, Thea, and Isis. Yeah. And then Cassiel is Anubis, Fran, Kronos, and the Norns. I don't think I've ever like heard of the Norns, but yeah. Sachiel is the Dagda, which is related to Celtic. Was like the husband of the Morgan, the good god. Jupiter, Thor, and Zeus.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I find like that very interesting how he like put like the two together, and there's like candle magic in here and yeah, so I thought that was a good one. But again, when we were talking as far as like the archangels, I wanted to still pull this book out today and talk about it because yeah, he does kind of give like what the archangels do if you're wanting to work with them. And again, you don't have to be as far as like, no, I don't want to work with them. You totally can. They are there for your benefit, and yes, they are scary, but again, you don't have to be scared of them because they are willing to help and work with you. So yeah,
they're always ever so present. Like I like to consider myself as a person that's very magically open to things, but again, using discernment because I don't know everything. And how will you know if you don't actually communicate? The answer will always the answer will always be no, unless you actually go out and try to seek the answer, which is why I think even in the last year, you helped me a lot to be a lot more open to certain, I mean, I think we all know, and we found out through this podcast that like the first reading you gave me was like, I think like someone named like a sa, like a S sound around you. And I was like, does that like ring any bells? Like Sarah? And I was like, girl, I don't remember. Like, no. Come to find it was Susie.
Yeah. 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 No, and I like channeling like names as far as like other angels. Granted, sometimes it's already enough going on up in here where it's like I don't want to give the names for everybody, but like I mean, it's interesting figuring out who they are. Sometimes they won't reveal themselves unless they want to. Maybe
Like the
it's
Morgan.
just not your time. It might not be the time yet. And with mine, with like George, which I find interesting, George came up with one of the ladies several years ago when I had like my reading, and then later on, like last year when I had one of the ladies who does like the angelic messages, she works with them, and she can channel. She had told me that George being the cherub, so it was kind of like adding more pieces to the puzzles and things just unlocking the way that they did. And so when I started talking with him, it's like more things just started to like fire and open up, and like it just was happening so fast. And so my point with that is my mom, she told me, she goes, so you have somebody that's with you that's George. I was like, yeah. She goes, that's funny you say that because I had you had an uncle that his name was George, and like he passed away like years ago, you know. And she goes, I wonder if it's like him following you around. I was like, no, but I mean, there's times like with these certain names and aspects where they just kind of follow you, where it's like they try to line things up. And so when you have these conversations with other people, whether if it's like names, imagery, somewhere you find like something that kind of like synchronizes with you and it resonates, and you're like, wow, that really makes sense. It's for you to just kind of make it line up the way that it makes sense to you in your mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And paying attention to synchronicities like numbers.
do you ever like on an altar space of yours, do you ever like not necessarily give offerings to like George, or do you like have things around to commemorate him?
I have like a little crystal it's an angel. He wants something else. He did tell me that the other day. He thought it'd be really cool. He's like, hey, if you want to incorporate like something like with the crows, because I like them so much, he said he's down for. So I do have like a bust that I have that is of a crow, and so I might use that for him and kind of put candles and stuff with. But I put him with Metatron, is the little tiny crystal it's a rose quartz crystal, and it's of an angel. And so I use that for when I had my travel altar space when I went to go see you guys in California, and I put that with George. But he typically sits next to Metatron because he works with him. And so yeah, so I'm like, that's what I have for him for now. And I bought candles for him. I've asked him, you know, like what scents would he like, or I have do I have it here? It's kind of tucked in a way. There's like I like very woodsy, like almost kind of like a very manly smell, like cologne smell, very like clean and fresh, you know, and almost kind of like the smell of like bourbon would be in there too. Like it just throw it in the mix. But I did find a candle. It was like kind of like this bluish gray. And I was like, ooh, that smells really good. He's like, I know, huh? That'd be really nice. And so that was his cue, and just being like, hey, this would be really nice for me. So I have that to like have for him for like an offering. He's okay with like very simple, just like if you want to light a candle for me, absolutely you can. Even just in the word of just giving him thanks because he's always just nearby, I always do that. For me, he's super simple, and I don't take one thing.
I'm gonna look for something to show you.
Yeah. Sorry. No, it's okay.
Keep talking. I'm gonna look for
or we just have dead silence and we just cut this part out. But that's how I what I have for George is like certain scented candles and kind of figuring out what he would like, and certain colors. He likes blue, bluish green.
I only asked because, again, I purchased something because
Susie and the Banshees.
well, yeah, hello.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much.
And this is not Susie at the bottom. I got it because I was like, like, you're a pretty kick-ass like guide, but I don't know how I can, like, I don't know, I'm trying to like combine the senses and just feel comforted. I like basically wanted to get that shirt so whenever I felt like I needed that sort of extra bit of fun to wear, just so that like I know that, oh my god, I'm wearing you, like this is like sort of like a jersey, or like sort of like,
Team Sue,
I don't know, like yeah, like a mascot or something. I'm like, I know you don't look like that, but nonetheless, like I even like have times where I think about if she is an angel or if she's just a guide. And I don't even know, I mean, I don't know if we can like touch on that, but like,
yeah, I mean, I consider, even though George is a cherub, I mean, we can have more than one angel. That's the other thing, or light being that is with us. And so I call George, even though he is angel, I deem him as my spirit guide. I know we did talk about that in the spirit guide cases of certain things in that episode, but I really more see him as the angelic assistance and the supernatural of like that genre, but he has been human, like his being has been human before. So I kind of deem him, so that's why it kind of came natural for me that him being spirit guide. But like you said with Susie, I know we kind of deemed like with her past life of being human as being like the very wild bohemian, desert kind of way, like big lion's mane hair, maybe a bartender in a life, like with that. But who's to say that she wasn't like an angel then, like with her spirit the way she is showing up now?
Which is why I wanted to ask, like, if all of that were to be true, I like to think like what makes us believe and not believe that, like, I feel like angels have a better understanding of the human condition than most, because deities are a completely different story. Like angels are really the ones that like, oh, I've been there, let's give them time, because they haven't, and they really know how to negotiate within like the gods and the goddesses and the deities. And they are really the ones that you call on to intervene. So what makes me really reinstate this like belief that like, yeah, no, they were once human, but like in the end they have a much better understanding of what it is to be human, because they were once living on this earth having all these emotions and whatever, you know what I mean? And another theory that I have is that perhaps when we come into this life and we have the intents of wanting to come back and learn certain lessons, I really believe that certain people have only been on this earth once, which is why everything is so new to them, and another reason why they aren't as seasoned spiritually as most. But I have a belief, or maybe this is a theory that I'm just outlandish, it might sound outlandish, but like, who's to say that when you've completed a certain cycle of reincarnated timelines, that once you reach the last one, you become an angel, and you actually have to go, not have to, but it is a means of service and gratitude to be an angel or spirit guide, because you know how that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how to communicate. You've learned the lessons, and you have the ups and downs, but now that you are at your last, or if the deities and the gods and the goddesses deem you as like, okay, you're done. Now you get to help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be nice for this being like the last one go round for me, but who's to say it won't? That I won't come back.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to be the I know that there's going to be a sense of a part of me that either I didn't learn the lesson, or some type of part of my soul would have to come back but regenerated as somebody else. Um, but like my energy, this energy is here, and once I go, that goes. I'm just going to be resonant in a different body, different personality, but there's going to be some similarities somewhere. Um, Whoever I become later on down the line, but I would like to, you know, be like some sort of cherub or some angelic assistance or whatever, and just hang out up there and be like, I really like it here, and just be the hermit, just in a cloud, not a mountain. It's like, get me out of this place.
Just like, I'm in the four seasons of clouds.
Could you imagine this just being like, yeah, Earth really just sucked. I'd rather just go and just be in the four seasons in the sky and just hang out there and really be like secluded, which is probably why the cherubs that they're always depicted like just, oh, look at the humans, just, just, oh, well.
Messing it up for themselves.
Messing it up.
I don't I feel like that concludes the episode, but like, no, I'd like to encourage a lot of other listeners to really go past their internal biases and the sort of programming that they have been ingrained with from birth, to really be open to the idea of maybe working with other angelic beings, or even like other demons, because in the end, like, I think we've all are awakening to the fact that we've been lied to, and there's power in information. And now that we have the power and tool of the internet, like in this day and age, to be ignorant is a choice.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time too, like being respectful it's just like, even just with the gods and goddesses, if you do work with them, but I mean, being respectful of that energy also, and not abusing it, I guess, is the thing, because that's where it seems like it gets kind of like lost. I think like if you kind of go in farther, but like you said, it's just broadening your mind and being willing to research, learn, being open-minded in the aspect of like, well, are they really like all that bad? Get to know them. Get to know them. It's just like, get to know me before you hate me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I again brought up a different sort of coming from a different religious background. I deemed like I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter, so I was like, oh my god, it's so bad. And now I'm like, I'm wearing a witch hat at work. Like, I wish someone were to come by and ask me, like, from the school I went to, like, oh my gosh, you've changed. And it's just like, I mean, who wouldn't say I didn't change for the better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Get of information. I mean, again, like, we can go back to the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Knowledge, but whoever said that knowing things is bad?
Yeah. And don't get cocky about it either, because I mean, there are times where it's like the mind is so powerful too, right? So when say kind of like giving power over a certain idea, like if there was like that inclination of like a fear of something that was going to happen, say like maybe some sort of entity taking over your body or something, again protecting yourself first, and cleansing and clearing, grounding, and doing all those things in order to get that energy out, you know, if you don't want it hanging around. But yeah, but that's what I mean by like respecting it too, you know.
Because the divine assistance also can come at a price.
Yeah. I agree.
And like you said, don't overexhaust your assistants, because like
it's like
you're calling on a Harry Potter girl.
Yeah. And sometimes like the entities, they'll just be like, so she's asking for assistance, and maybe I can get like a little Riley, like if they sense like a sense of some sort of fear or something, they're going to see what they could try to get away with. And it's like, oh, no. I have a license to depart, and I just need to stand in my power until you go away. This is not how it's working out. You know, we're coming like to talk, but like, don't think that you have the upper hand or whatever, you know. And I do think that it does help, like if you limit your certain beliefs of like how much power that you have, then that's not going to work, you know. And then when you kind of test things out with certain rituals or you know, calling on evoking like these certain entities, it's kind of like that's putting like not necessarily like willpower, but like that internal power that you do have, you know. And because silly how bright that is.
Because who's to say they don't want to work with you?
Yeah, that's true. They can just be like, no. What do I get out of it?
No, not today, girl.
Yeah, maybe next time I can. Well, I guess I could say that really quick, just to kind of close it up. One of the couple of things when I've worked with a couple of the demons, when I've done some demon work, one of them, with the way that the rituals are set out in the book, they did ask, you know, like, it doesn't mean that you have to, but maybe asking what the demon, what they would want as when things are done as a reward. I've had one tell me, well, I would like a beer. And I'm like, well, and I would have to ingest that. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. What else do you want? And a cigarette would have been fine. I'm like, granted, I was still smoking cigarettes at the time. And I was like, you know, I could do that. Totally can. One of them wanted a piece of chocolate cake, because I don't care for chocolate. I don't really care for chocolate cake, but I'm like, you know, that's besides the point. So eating a piece of chocolate cake. And one of them just wanted me to set paper on fire because it liked the smell of the flames of like burnt paper. So it's just very interesting on what they would ask for. It's like certain, they like feeling like that sensation of like the human emotions, feelings, or like body when they get what they like to have.
So. It's like Beetlejuice. Say it 3 times, girl. Ooh. I wish I had something to contribute to, like, I guess, a sense of experience, but I lack the experience with.
You'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning myself. I'm a perpetual student of anything magical or esoteric or spiritual or divine, because in the end, like, I don't know everything.
Well, I want to say, because I had so much time, and then I had creative projects and everything, but I think I was in a place where, like in the witch sense of figuring out, not necessarily putting a title as to like what type of witch that I was, but not being as gullible as I was in the beginning. And there's times where I'm still pretty gullible, but knowing how to defend myself after the things had happened. And I would rather be equipped with the knowledge and be able to know and try and know how to defend myself, so that way I'm not caught off guard. And if somebody were to try something on me, I know how to hit back twice as harder. So yeah. But again, it's because I love me at the end of the day. It's not to be like egoic or anything, but it's because again, like it's fending for my life and my soul is the deeper thing about it, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's I agree with you. I think the basics of just anything magic, or whether they be going into like a new workplace, it's always important to know to protect yourself, or to have, like, you know, if you have a selenite stone with you, bring it with you. It's always nice to have protection. Protection is like, you know, like having like a protection plan on your cell phone. Like, you need that cell phone all the time. So if you would want to get a protective case over it, that's just your choice. Or you can just raw dog life and not walk to the world without like a phone case that will protect your phone. Like, it's up to you. You know what I mean? Like,
I just love how you just keep being like raw dog in life.
I'm like, I mean, a lot of people raw dog life without any divine sort of assistance or tools. And I'm like, I don't know how you're getting through this time, but like, listen, I have protection, I have tools, I have friendships that have taught me so much magically to protect myself, because at any given moment you can be susceptible. I mean, I remember this one time I had my iPhone and I was like, I don't need a protective case for it today. I bent over, screen cracked. And I was like, never again am I going to do that. But see, like, experience, words don't teach, experience does. So unless you've been there like I have, where you're like, I don't need a phone case today, you shouldn't have done that.
Check yourself.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, I feel like this concludes the episode.
It does. I mean, yeah, I can list that's what I'll do. Like in the description, if anybody following this video or listening on Spotify, I'll leave in the description comments if you would like to get access to any of those books. But as to say, that's not the only books to just start working with, but that's how I started with the experience, to dive into more and finding other literature and resources online on figuring out the angels and demons and who they are, and starting with that. So get to know who you're working with. Yeah, so I'll make sure to include that. But anyway, do you want to take us out?
So long, Alice.
So long, Alice. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
We love you.
We love you.